more and more people are heading into debt slavery for life. This is not a good thing where they're in debt for life. They're constantly having to pay back that debt over their entire lifetime until they're dead. And that is just the harsh reality of what is going on and what I'm going to show you in this stream. So let's get right into it. More Canadians are carrying their mortgage debt into old age, making it difficult to plan for retirement. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of insane. This actually came from the Globe and Mail. So more Canadians of retirement age are still paying off a mortgage, and financial advisors say rising interest rates will make it even more difficult for Canadians to pay off their homes before retirement. You know, the interesting thing that I want to note about that is when you really think about low interest rates, what they've done, they've essentially pushed everybody out on the risk curve, you know, from your pension fund to your grandma and granddad. And when you really think about what's happened there, think about if there had been investments that had yielded a solid return. Like you could get a solid return in your savings account, because once upon a time you could do that before 2007, 2008. So it's kind of insane when you really think about it. And really, everybody has just positioned themselves for this low interest rate environment, which eventually comes to an end like everything else. So the number of people over 65 with an outstanding mortgage in their place of residence rose from 1.2 million to 1.5 million between 2016 and 2021, according to Statistics Canada. Although the agency noted that they don't measure whether other people living in the home make mortgage payments contribute. That doesn't make sense, but this is obviously copied through the Globe and Mail. But the number of senior citizens living alone with a mortgage also rose around 181,000 to 220,000 in the same period. That is absolutely insane when you really think about it. That is one hell of a rise. And when you really think about what's going on here, is you've got to think that people can't even afford with their retirement, with the massive appreciation that they've seen in their home, they still can't afford to have a retirement where they just live a normal life, not even spending loads of money. I mean, we know when people retire, they spend less money. So, I mean, the fact that they are having to take on more debt in order to just live is absolutely astonishing to me. And when you really think about it, this is debt slavery. It is you're a debt slave for life in that scenario. You're essentially constantly taking on debt in order just to get by. And that is a sad fact, which you don't hear when people are trying to sell the Canadian dream, which doesn't exist anymore. This is really the standard of living falling off a cliff. That is what we are seeing right here, and people don't realize the significance of these things. So I think it's really important. Additionally, a 2022 survey of more than 1,500 people conducted by Angus Reid and commissioned by two financial advisory firms found that 40% of respondents either plan to postpone retirement or have already postponed it because they had too much debt. So there you go as well. Like, standard of living is just going down. I mean, my grandfather was able to retire, and he was in a lucky position where he didn't need to take on debt. So that was great for him. But people nowadays, they can't afford to do that at all. And really, his generation was one of the last generations to do that. Most people are going to be working into their grave. So make sure it's doing something that you like doing, at least I'll say that much. Some of these mortgages were at 1.5% or 2.5% interest, and if variable rates go up or fixed rates roll over in the next few years, that will definitely boost their amortization. So there's going to be more of a phenomenon. You know, what's interesting about that is I think people interpret this wrong, because yes, their amortization can get boosted, but it can only be boosted to that maximum of 25 years or 30 years, depending on if they're in an insured mortgage or not. And if they are boosting it, then that's not a good sign. That really isn't a good sign. And really, the amount of people that have bought houses and are now underwater on their loan, it's going to present a huge issue when they come to renew. So renewals are just going to be a disaster when that comes around. And it's going to be the same for seniors who took on loads of debt as well, who've took out home equity line of credits, reverse mortgages. People are just going to have serious problems because of what's going on here. So Deb White, president of the BC branch of the Canadian Mortgage Brokers Association, agreed that more people than ever are carrying mortgages into retirement age, and said that people's reliance on their home equity for borrowing isn't helping either. You know, it is kind of insane when you really think about how many people are depending on their home equity for retirement. And it doesn't make any sense, because you have to think it through that it's then essentially just a Ponzi scheme. And, you know, it just makes no sense. If everybody is relying on their home equity, how are they going to unlock that without causing any implications or unintended consequences, should I say, when they go to do that? Because the house will eventually have to be sold to market, so there'll be an incredible amount of supply that will come to market at some point. Because if seniors, you know, are taking on reverse mortgages, etc., when they eventually die or pass on, then that home is no longer going to be left to their son or their family or whatever. So then that home is going to be sold on the market. So it creates a totally weird dynamic that I'll have to think through more within the housing market. For example, Miss White said many parents would borrow the value of their home to put together a down payment for their children. Oh, I mean, this is just what we've got to right now. I mean, the reason I've highlighted that in blue there is just because it is just the pinnacle of how insane things have really gotten, where people are borrowing from their home equity, unrealized profit essentially. They're borrowing that and then lending that out, or not even lending it out, gifting it to their children so they could get in the housing market. And a lot of people have really flawed understandings of these cycles. They think that they can go on forever. And the reality is, we know these things just cannot last forever. And I think we are really at the end when you really think about what's happening right now within the economy. People are struggling to make even their debt payments right now, let alone their principal payments. They can't even make their debt payments. So once you get to that extreme, how can you really kick the can further down the road? I mean, I can't think of any ways. Maybe you can. I don't know. But it's kind of like we're at the end here. And then this is really interesting. Mr. Heath said people planning to sell their home and move up somewhere cheaper should start preparing sooner rather than later. A life-changing step like this is complicated at the best of times, but becomes even more difficult with age. Yeah, and where are they going to go at the end of the day? And what unintended consequences is that going to have? I mean, just look at what's happened in BC, the dynamic that we saw take place in 2020 and 2021. BC has one of the fastest aging populations within Canada. And when you look at the amount of people that retired during 2020 and 2021, they then moved from places like Vancouver, cashed out of there, went to Vancouver Island, went to places in the interior of BC that were more affordable. They drove up the cost for all of the locals there. And then the seniors, they can't find healthcare. You know, the grocery stores can't even keep themselves open. Like I saw firsthand in Victoria this summer when we were there, like grocery stores can't even survive in a city. I mean, that is just bananas when you really think about it. So the reality is, like, wherever they go, they're going to cause issues. And it is really a big problem. And I don't think there's any easy solution. And essentially, if they decide to move country, let's say, which a small proportion do at the moment, then what's that going to do? That's going to essentially be like the Ponzi scheme unraveling as they take profit, they pass it on to another sucker, and then another sucker passes it on to another sucker. And it's like it goes down that pyramid essentially. So it's kind of mad when you really think these things through, what could happen. But I mean, the boomers are holding on to so much of the wealth in real estate when you really think about it in Canada. I mean, even here in Calgary, which is a relatively young city, when I walk around our neighborhood where houses, range anything from $600,000 to over $2 million, and I see most of the people who live in these more expensive houses, they're all boomers, and they're all like nearly at that age where they're going to really struggle to take care of the property. And what I think through is like, who's going to buy that? Who can afford to buy that? Like, people right now definitely can't afford to buy that. So who are they going to sell that to? And it's really going to become an issue that is going to take hold over the next 5-10 years. And, immigrants aren't going to buy it. They don't have the money. There's no magic card that you can pull out of the hat and just say, hey, this is who's going to buy it. It's just not going to work like that. This whole thing is going to collapse inwards. It's going to implode. And that's what we're starting to see right now. And then to show you something else as well. And this is US, obviously, but still, you can apply the same things to Canada as well. And a HECM is essentially just a reverse mortgage. It's what they call a reverse mortgage in the US. But you can see how this is increasing. Cash out refis, home equity line of credits, reverse mortgages. They keep increasing and increasing. And I'm sure if this went 2021, 2022, we'd just see more of an increase in these numbers. And that is a big, big problem. You've got to think these things through. All of the people, take a look around. The next time you walk around your neighborhood or you're in an area with the bigger houses, take a look at who's in them, because I guarantee you a lot of them are going to be seniors. They're not these Asian millionaires that the mainstream press makes you believe are coming over and just buying up everything here, which is kind of insane. So then I want to show you this, and this is kind of old, but it sort of illustrates the problem that we're in. So this was actually in 2016. So think about how much this could have gone up since then. So rising senior debt in Canada, 42% of Canadian senior families 65 plus had debt in 2016. That's just insane. People past retirement in debt. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. Is that the lie? Is that the retirement that you have to look forward to in Canada? What kind of retirement is that? It's just the living standard is just heading off a cliff in Canada right now. Little do most people realize it. I know we realize it on this channel. 10% have a home equity line of credit. 15% have a mortgage. 17% have car loans. 30% have lines of credit, 90% have credit cards. So it's absolutely insane. The amount of debt, average amount of debt, nearly $30,000. So it's not a small amount. There is a lot of people that are really, really struggling. And, you also see seniors going to food banks. It's not just young families, people who can't afford food. It's also seniors. People are just being pushed to the ultimate edge right now. And it's not just a case of rising interest rates. Really, the main cause of this is a decade or longer of low interest rate policies that we have seen. And that has really been the cause of all this pain. That has really been what has pushed people out so far on the risk curve and made things so bad for the future. And it really shows how the standard of living here in Canada is actually in decline right now. It's going down. It's dropping off a cliff. And I don't think people truly understand what that means. We'll go to a food bank if you don't realize, and whilst you're there, if you can afford it, then drop off some food for the local food bank as well, because they desperately need it all over Canada right now, because people are being driven right to the edge. This is what it feels like, I guess, to go into a depression. And if you don't believe me, go to a food bank and you will just see the parking lots. You won't even be able to get a space. And that's what it's like here in Calgary. I can't imagine what it's like in Toronto and Vancouver. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, you might like that one there. You might also like this one there that the YouTube algorithm recommends. Thank you so much to Terry, Cowson, all you guys for supporting the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Peace, guys. Bye-bye.